The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook, download their top-rated app, and use promo code RTRS. Brought to you by Nature Pet Foods, slow cooked with Super Fusion, the official pet food of the Ricky. Get 20% off your first order at Chewy or Amazon with promo code 20RTRS. Adam Kasabi, the official realtor of the process, processrealtor.com. LL Pavorsky Jewelers, where Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners go and get engaged. And Kinetic Skateboarding. Get 9.1% off your first order with promo code Dave Silver. On the show today, the Sixers launched themselves back into first place with 3 destructions. 1 of Oklahoma City, 2 of the Atlanta Hawks. Things are good again. We have our official victory cigar proclamation, I believe, as B-Ball Paul is probably the best garbage time player in the history of the NBA. A lot of deodorant talk in the mailbag. The odds that Furkan Corkmaz is a Sixer next year. Who would win? And finally, who would win in a game of one-on-one? Tyrese Maxey or Matisse Thybulle? Another good listener question. And a listener-submitted Jigsaw. A lot of shit. Without any further ado, Amos and the Chef.
We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, along with a guy who our listeners have indicated does not know the difference between Bubba Sparks and Paul Wall. That is Mike Levin.
Yeah, that was my bad. That was a mistake.
Which song was that?
Miss New Booty is Bubba Sparks. Paul Wall is featured on, I believe featured on the song Grills by Nelly, which is also a song played in that same band in Orlando in 2006.
Are both of those rappers like white guys with like grills? Or is that why you mistook them?
Basically.
Okay, all right. Because I have a vague memory of both those guys. I remember both of their names, but that's it. And my assistant program director at WIP, Jack Keffer, said, "Hey, my friends were listening to Ricky. They said you don't know the song Miss New Booty. You really got to listen to that song." I don't know, man. Feels like I've been.
It's a fun song. Yeah. It's a fun song that I think you would enjoy in 15 years later.
Sure. So. That's what I was going to say. I've missed it for 15 years. It would be nice to dip in now, maybe. Yeah. Well, I would like to lead this talk about Sixers versus Hawks with a question and maybe a proclamation. The question is, we often agree on some things, we disagree on other things. One thing that we agreed on is I think both of our reactions when the Sixers signed Dwight Howard was like, I don't know. You know, it was very, very nervous, I think, for a lot of different reasons. Have we ever, you and I, been collectively more wrong about one thing than I think we were about Dwight Howard?
I mean, certainly. Just odds wise has to be. I don't remember my exact reaction. Dwight as a human being was my issue with the signing, and because I did obviously for my Lakers watch him do exactly what he was supposed to last year. Mm-hmm. And so as a player I was like, if he just does that, then that's fine, but it was as a person, and it's hard to know how that's gone, but at least as in regards to being around his teammates, it seems like he's well liked and has been helpful, and even like in a very odd mentory situation. I don't think there's been a person in NBA history to have a stranger career than Dwight Howard. I think
it's very strange. Yeah.
I think he is absolutely number one. To go from carrying his team, an Orlando Magic team, to the finals, with like maximum 2 skills, to then becoming one of the like most universally disliked humans in the NBA on various different teams where it just didn't work out. To go from like MVP candidate, NBA Finals, beat LeBron, and had like a ahead of his time Stan Van Gundy team with like, you know, the classic surround him with shooters situation. I love Rashard Lewis. To now being so disliked, resurrected his career, veterans minimum, like lunch pail guy, where now his goofiness is like, people were making fun of him for like farting and shit back when he was like an all-star, and was like, just nobody was into his stuff. And now that he's older and getting paid far less, and as a backup, it's like just drooled over by the team's social media accounts. But Lakers and Sixers now, it's like the arc of that is just so strange.
He's the frosty guy. Like he's the beloved.
And he's the ultimate frosty guy. It's like it's like the Frosty Freeze that was invented for Dwight Howard. It is really very perfect for him. And he's been, over the last 10 games, has been really great. There's been some Dwight experience over the course of the season that was not as great, but especially lately, he's been great.
Well, he seems like there's a certain corny level to a lot of NBA stars for one reason or another. It seems like Dwight was good, but nowhere near good enough to be as corny as he was, and it made everybody hate him. Like, I think LeBron's a pretty corny dude, actually, but he's so good that he overcomes it. Dwight just became the person who, when he walks into a room, you can't wait to leave the room. That's what happened. It seemed like with the Lakers, with the Rockets, so on and so forth. Like his goofy shit seems like totally him, 100% him. He loves doing this. You can't do it as a star player, but you can do it as this.
Yeah, it's
goofy
hard to
backup.
be that like outrageously goofy as a
leader,
as a starter. Like, it's a little bit like, all right, calm down. But like goofy guy off the bench, yeah, fucking love the goofy guy. Bring him in, fart on the field, whatever the hell. It doesn't matter.
And the leadership thing or whatever, it seems to me as if he is doing an impression of what he believes a leader does, like shooting after the game but you don't need to do much more than that if you're Dwight. And on top of all of it, he for a guy who, like, in the middle of his career, because of back issues, looked like he was going, like his career was going to go down the hill so quickly because he wasn't physically what he was. And to your point, he wasn't particularly skilled, you know. He looks physically maybe better than any 35-year-old I've ever seen in my entire life. Yeah. He's strong and bouncy and doesn't seem to ever, I mean, he only plays, 15 or 20 minutes a game, but he never seems to ever run out of energy, He's been, I don't think either of us were like, hell no, brought out the garlic and the Iron Cross, like if it was a vampire, like running from it. But he's been like excellent. And at games like that, let me tell you, the Sixers' size advantage against a team like Atlanta makes Atlanta look like a children's team, like a completely unserious children's team, I thought, watching these two games.
Yeah, I mean, I think George Hill has done a lot for the second unit.
Yes.
That everybody's benefiting from, even though George Hill didn't play great yesterday. Just his presence is allows everybody else to do their job so much easier. Like when Dwight rolling to the rim, when the defense has to stay attached to shooters, and they can't just clog the paint for him, or double shake with the ball or whatever it is. So you have to stay attached to Corkmaz, you have to stay attached to George Hill, and then Matisse can kind of rove around, and we'll talk about that later. It just makes it like a real weapon, and for the second unit, they've really just gelled over the past few months to going from like a big issue in December, January to, I think, a big strength. And now with Dwight, you know, he hasn't had many. There was a time during the season when he was just turning the ball over, like on-ball turnovers, like where he's trying to do too much with the ball in his hand, which has just never been his game. And you're going to get the offensive fouls. You're going to get the, you know, elbows to somebody's throat and stuff, because he's sometimes too big and he has a reputation and he can't help it. And he's a little bit of a guy who does that. But on the Dwight scale, like lately, it's been way positive. Last night he finished through contact a bunch. I feel like he got like 3 or 4 N1s as they're trying to like drag him down. I also think like, and this is going to be such a, probably rightfully so, Shake apologist thing for me to say, because Shake's obviously been up and down. But like, when Shake gets a pick and roll and drives to the rim and gets by his man and draws the big up even a little bit, even when he misses on those shots, and it allows Dwight to clean up the mess and have like, if the defense is rotating over like a 6'5" guard or whatever to try to box out Dwight, that should count as like an assist for Shake. Even if he's missing like a layup or a floater or something like that, just allowing the big to, like, drawing the big up to him and
sounds
allowing
like a Kobe.
Dwight to...
Sounds like a Laker fan. A Kobe assist.
It's just a Shake fan. It's just straight up Shake. I think like he does a good job of using his length and positioning to like draw that. And he doesn't have perfect touch or anything, but a lot of times it goes in. And when it doesn't, Dwight cleans it up. Like, I would love to see the percentage of times on Shake drives that the Sixers either get a bucket from Shake, a lob to Dwight, or an offensive rebound from Dwight, because it happens very often, and I feel like Shake, even in misses, deserves credit for that.
So you mentioned George Hill, and you also touched on Thybulle, and I think they're tied together, right? So Mike O'Connor, there's a video on our YouTube channel, basically with Mike O'Connor comparing Matisse on offense, and if the Sixers could use him more like Bruce Brown Jr. in that sort of like 4 role offensively, a little more crashing, cutting, those sorts of things, rather than a spot up player, that it would be advantageous. One of the problems being that for that player to exist, the primary ball handler on the floor needs to be more of a pick and roll threat on the perimeter, which makes it tough with Simmons particularly, and even like Shake's okay with that, but I wouldn't call him like a natural guard at all. So George Hill comes in, and then they play these full bench units with Thybulle playing more 4. And I thought last night was the second Hawks game was probably the best offensive night Thybulle's had, I thought, just in terms of what they were doing with him and his movement. And I think almost all of it has to do with George Hill being on the floor, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's a choice. We saw more of Matisse cutting, I think, as a rookie and getting like offensive rebounds and putbacks and stuff. But as Mike O'Connor's video said, like Matisse started doing the stuff like in the video, which I encourage you to watch. It's like, look at the ways that Bruce Brown scores. Look at his percentage of offense that he gets out of cuts, out of offensive rebounds, out of spot ups, whatever it is. And so much more of Matisse's is out of spot ups, despite the fact that they're both limited shooters. Bruce Brown played a lot more. Bruce Brown's a better offensive player. He always has been. He was the point guard on a Miami team for 2 years, and he's good. But as a pro, he's still like, on that team especially, you don't want him handling the ball a ton. So that they use him the way they use him, and Matisse has not been doing that this year. And last night it just kind of came out. Like he cut off the catch on a pass from Shake, which Ben also did later in the game. So I wonder if it's just a focal point that they're talking to both of them about. He cut off a George Hill drive and a Maxey drive for an alley-oop. Like, he cut off a Dwight high post, and it's nice to, now that there's enough shooting that the paint is not fully clogged, it allows Matisse to cut with those guys. Because like the bench units, even Dwight, like there's not a ton of posting up happening in the bench units. So it's a lot of high pick and roll and down screens and stuff. And Matisse cut off a down screen when they weren't just looking at him because they fall asleep with him offensively. And so it's nice. It's just nice for him to be a weapon and for them to use him in that way, because he is fast and he's long and he can get up quickly. And he's hard to stop when he's got a head of steam right near the basket. So and I love that TJ backcourt swipe on defense. And he passed the ball well, making me look good because I'm talking about his passing. I think it's just the team is just really coalescing nicely, and obviously they're playing the Hawks. Although the Hawks they have 9 games left, and there's nobody record-wise better than the Hawks than they're playing, which is pretty wild. But they're just like, it seems like the bench unit, especially with George Hill, and now that everybody's healthy, has really coalesced nicely around each other. There's a good feel for each other with the first and second units, and it's going to be hard for them. Maybe it won't be hard for them, but it'll be tough to be like, hey, in the playoffs, this bench unit stuff is not going to happen anymore, because they've been good and they kind of deserve a shot to play some minutes. And I wonder if maybe they'll get some first round stuff, but it'll be interesting to see, like, are they as effective with, Seth or Tobias in some of those lineups as well.
One quick, before we get to Simmons, who I thought, I know Utah, everyone points to the best, his best game of the year statistically, but they got their asses handed to them in that game. I thought maybe last night, the last 2 games were probably Simmons' best offensive games of the year, at least to my eyes. But a quick proclamation: Trey Young has a loser face. He's a loser. I've obviously been stamped with Luka Doncic, fairly Luka Doncic slander, and have talked about that trade oftentimes.
Because you thought Trey was a better player.
Well, I didn't really. What I really thought was that Luka was too slow, and I still kind of think he is. But I thought that trade was fair because they got another pick, and Trey Young's production was good enough to justify the other pick. But, I wouldn't want to play with that guy. I don't know. He's got a little bit of, Boogie Cousins, miserable face all the time. And, he'll get better, I'm sure. And he's obviously, a really good passer and a good shooter. But I'm just, not buying it. I'm just, not buying him. And I think he's got a loser face.
Yeah, he's obviously very good, and especially in a pick and roll, he is tough to stop because he's got great touch and he's a good passer. And when they have shooters around him, it's a similar pick 'em apart type of thing. And I think at the beginning of the game, Atlanta came out with something to prove, and Trey was sort of rolling. He didn't play in the first game of the back-to-back or the two-game set, and then they went up pretty big at first, and then the bench came out without Trey out there and rolled him, and then they started adjusting the coverage on Trey. Whereas they were playing drop coverage and allowing him to just sort of pick them apart, it became let's get the ball out of his hands, let's hedge, let's show a little bit more, and then it was way more effective. I think Trey's good. I think he's an exceptional offensive player, and the jumper's obviously a weapon, and he has a level of shiftiness despite not being that fast, where he can get kind of wherever he wants still. Even one time he finished around Embiid, and another time he tried to do it the next possession, and Embiid blocked the shit out of him. So he is small, and there is a little bit of just fucking hit that small guy in me that I want to see him endure pain as a fan of the people defending him. But I do think as far as a teammate goes, he does seem a little tough to play with because he just always needs the ball in his hands. And there's talk about him hunting assists, which is a very weird, odd thing. But it seems like he's not super well liked. He got Lloyd Pierce fired, although they've then become a better team since then. So it's a hard thing to read. It'll be his first time in the playoffs, so I'm excited to see how that looks. Because he is bad defensively, but the offense of Atlanta falls totally apart, especially without Bogdan out there. I think they can cobble together decent offense when Bogdan's there, but without, it becomes they're a 13 seed. So he's an interesting player, I think. But I can't comment on loser face. He might have loser face.
Mike, with Young Rock being picked up for a second season, is it possible you're going to call Kasabi to purchase several extra homes?
I'm moving to Delaware, baby.
Well, Adam Kasabi, the official realtor of the process, doesn't need to actually just help you in Delaware. He personally can only sell you a house in Delaware. But his team could sell you a house in Maryland. You could do that. Or he's helped people out in Florida, New York, PA, Jersey. Kasebe, K-S-E-B-E. Everyone has trouble spelling it. K-S-E-B-E, processrealtor.com. It has never been a crazier time to buy a house than right this second. People are buying houses left and right. It is like you need somebody by your side who knows what the fuck they're doing. And that's when you call Kasabi. Interest rates are low. Good time to refinance if you haven't done that. But if you're going to buy a home, Kasabi's your guy. Now, as I mentioned, his team covers all of Delaware, covers Maryland, the Adam Kasabi team. But Kasabi will hook you up with a realtor in a different area that he personally cannot cover, that is Adam Kasabi approved, and he has done that for several people. As far as like Delaware beaches, man, have the entire state on lock from up top to down below. Remember, property taxes in Delaware, I'm talking to you, New Jersey. I'm talking to you, Pennsylvania. What am I paying in property taxes a year? Like $8,000. And then you look at those shore homes in Jersey, you probably pay $15,000. Delaware, like $1,000. Look, if you're looking for a shore house, it's the Delaware beaches. If you're looking to move at all, buy a home for the first time, Kasabi's your guy. If you're looking to refinance, Kasabi's your guy. KSEBE, 302-864-8643, 302-864-8643. Kasabi team based out of Long and Foster and Bethany Beach. 302-864-8643 or adam@processrealtor.com. Adam Kasabi, the official realtor of the Process. Defensively, he's so slight. It's not that he's short. You know, short players are definitely at a disadvantage, but he is so slight. And whatever. I don't want to make this a Trey Young pod. Ben Simmons, offensively, I thought these were his two best games of the year. I do think they are. I do think Atlanta is a bunch of frauds, but these games were good, and Simmons came out clearly trying to make a point of how he played, and he just, I don't want to sound like a broken record or whatever. Does a broken record repeat? I guess it does. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say it over and over and over again, but like, bro, even when it's hard, you got to, like, if you come in like that, you are so physically gifted that you can do more of it. You can, and he was great the last two games offensively, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, he completely dominated the game. Like, this was another game where the starters didn't have to play more than 27 minutes. The bench kind of carried it through, which is good to see, because it's just nice to have as much rest as possible, and it's been a good stretch of that. But for Ben, it's been like he had a ton of juice at the beginning, getting to the rim, finishing through contact, doing his thing on the break, orchestrating it, finding shooters, had a nice big putback dunk. And I thought this was a game where I thought he got a good amount of offense in the half court, breaking guys down off the dribble, which you don't see all the time.
Well, he did a great one to Gallinari. He just went at him, and you should be able to do that.
Absolutely, especially if guys are, usually they put smaller guys on Ben and just say, like, I dare you to, like, post up, because he's not crazy effective as that. But if they put bigger, slower guys on Ben, then he's just gotta take him to the rim like that. Especially if they're willing to, like, Gallinari was covering him kind of out on the perimeter, which might have been a mistake. But I thought that it's nice to see him get some offense out of the half court with him as the ball handler, and he also cut well, as we talked about before. I thought Ben and Joel really just played off each other. There was a sequence of the two of them just doing a ton of stuff. Ben on defense into Ben on offense, which he's just so easily to go from offense to defense because he's so fast and decisive when he does. It's just, and when he's not out there, in those stretch of games, everything becomes a slog. And so there's just a nice vibe between Ben and Joel of complementing each other in a way that we just haven't seen. I would say the numbers are obviously great with them on court together, and I think they have been in previous seasons as well. But to my eye, the Joel and Ben pairing is stronger right now than it's ever been. And
they just seem like they're staying out of each other's way. I don't mean that as a negative thing, but like, there's not a lot of times where like Embiid's. You don't see as many times where Embiid's trying to post up, and there's
double
like Ben trying to post up too. Yeah, triple, quadruple.
The rare triple is tough. I think that there comes a lot. We talked about the Sixers ownership last time, and about like the willingness to take risks. which they have to their credit, but also that comes with the drawback of like when you get these guys playing with each other for a number of years, there really is a good feel for each other that they have, and they can grow even if their skills are not. You know, Embiid took a huge leap forward this season. Ben's leap has been a little bit more intermittent to non-existent, although defensively I would say he has. But even just like between the two of them, there is a level of comfort that comes with the fact that they've been playing together for 3-4 years. And I think that they're not to say like they should have kept whatever together that they had earlier in their season when they made big trades to bring guys in. But now that we've had a little bit of stability from that, I think that the team is benefiting.
I agree with you. I mean, we've seen it in NBA. I think it's one of the advantages that the Jazz have. You know, that the Jazz have changed some pieces around it, but the core of that team has remained. And I think we'll see. You know, you still need top level talent to succeed in the playoffs for sure, but this can't hurt. And I think they've benefited from it a lot. And I think like at the very least, Joel and Ben, like they just know each other better and know where they're going to be, and they're I think a little more respectful of that space, and that's important. You know, and that could be part of the reason. You know, Ben's like his shot attempts are down significantly, not by like 4, but like when you look at a percentage basis. But I think part of that too is Joel's dominance, and you know, Ben not forcing things he doesn't need to do. Now, if the shots were at the rim and he was dunking and he was getting free throws, that's one thing. But if it means fewer like hook shots and fall away jumpers from 12 feet, I'm fine with that. You know.
Yeah. Although he did hit one last night, which was nice to see. And I think Sixers Adam said he hit eight corner threes in warm-ups in a row. So looking out for it. Maybe next game is the game you bet, Spike. Maybe I'm telling you to do it.
Oh, there we go. And then you'll make fun of me when I don't do it, because that'll be the DraftKings thing.
I do think as far as like the Embiid, like there was a time earlier in the game when Atlanta was doubling him whenever he got the ball, and I don't think that they've come up with a perfect counter to that yet. If not, obviously Atlanta is not a team with a ton of skilled defenders, especially without DeAndre Hunter out there. But against a team like Toronto or Boston or something, I don't think that they've developed a consistent, okay, they're doing this, we know how to get around it. I think Embiid's improved as a passer. I think they put him at the nail sometimes, and that makes it easier. And there's ways to do it, but I feel like at this point it's tiresome for the defense to hard double all game, and I think Atlanta went away from it, and then Embiid got Capella in foul trouble, and then they had to go small with John Collins, and then there was like 3 straight, just as soon as you cross half court, just lob it up to Embiid on the low block and let him draw a foul or be bigger than John Collins. But I don't think when in the playoffs, when there's going to be such a focus on him, I don't think I've seen quite enough yet to be like, oh, you're doubling Embiid? Well, we're making you pay for it. Like, I'm glad you're doubling Embiid. I'm not there yet, and I would love for them to. I'm sure they're working on it in whatever practices. And there actually is going to be, I hadn't realized, there's going to be like a week off from the end of the regular season and the first round of the playoffs because of the play-in tournament. So there will be time for them to work some things in, and depending on where they land, knowing who they're going to play will be different. But I'd be interested in seeing in the playoffs how different that looks when they do send hard doubles at Joel.
Yeah, the hard double thing is what you want the defense to have to do is to be like weighing their risk on both sides. And unfortunately, there's nothing on the Joel double side where they even have to think about what that risk is. A team that can do it, a team that has the personnel to do it. That's why, even though a team like Toronto has played poorly this year and, stats-wise the defense doesn't measure up, they have the athletes and the will to do it. And, the Sixers definitely don't make teams pay in the way that they need to make that uncomfortable to do. It's certainly worth trying for any team. You did mention the Sixers ownership just a bit ago. I would be remiss if I did not mention the story that came out this week about Josh Harris's decreased role at Apollo Holdings, where the hedge fund where he works, that there was a internal power struggle between he and another guy. The other guy got the promotion. Josh Harris didn't. On the outside, it appears as if Josh Harris stayed in his position, still valuable there. But the article does suggest that Josh Harris could leave Apollo Holdings after losing this power struggle. You, of course, are our hedge fund and financial maneuvering expert. I'm curious as to what you think about Josh Harris's failed power play within Apollo now that he doesn't get to take over for Leon Black.
I like it. I think that it's nice that he gets to know, like, being put back, being like, hey, take a pay cut, and we'll just bring somebody in to do the same job as you, which they were hoping to work out with Hinkie and Brian Colangelo. It's like, we don't want to fire Sam. We just want to bring in another guy who happens to be the child of the chairman to do the same job. What's wrong with that? And so I think for Josh to have that happen to him, I think is a good learning experience. And we're all about growth. And if he wanted to issue an apology for his actions, we're asking for Dave Silver to issue one. So if Josh can now say, I realize the error of my ways type of thing, would be cool. I wonder if he does leave Apollo, would he still be owner of the Sixers, or does that go away?
So I
obviously
don't
I know this as business guy, but I'm testing you to see if you know it.
You know what's funny? I don't know whether the Sixers. Well, because half of it is owned by non-Apollo, right? Half of it is owned by Blitzer, who is not Apollo. So I have no idea. I have no idea if that's his money or Apollo's money. I really don't know. I have no idea. I would guess
that he does, because it's like Harris Blitzer management. There probably is like a corporation between the two of them.
Yes, well, I'm sure there is. Well, that's HBSC. That's Harris Blitzer Sports Entertainment. But I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I would be destroyed if I never saw another Josh Harris press conference.
He posted a picture with Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith, and I was like, how did that go? How did that go that you got a picture with them? Because it's not like they're walking around being like, oh, that's the Sixers owner. Sick. Give me a picture. So you had to be like, hey, I'm the owner of the Sixers. I want a picture with these two Eagles that are there. And I just want to know, like, I don't know. I guess rich guys do that stuff all the time where they like cozy up to like some celebrities, athletes, whatever it is, and go like, hey, give me a picture of this. And the celebrities have to be like, okay. And but I just like, why do you want that? Why do you want to, like, you're already the owner of the Sixers. Like, you really want a picture of you standing next to Devontae Smith and Jalen Hurts? Like, that's so bad that you have to like bother these kids basically their day.
But that's why they own teams. That's why it's not the money. Yeah. It's not the money's part of it, but it is more the cool factor. Like, look at fucking, no offense to him, but like, look at Michael Rubin's Instagram. Like, it's like,
I mean, you could just go like, because I'm not that person, but if I was owner of the Sixers, I'd probably be like, yeah, I'm gonna go talk to them. Like, I would go talk to Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith and be like, hey, I'm the owner of the Sixers, and I'm a big Eagles fan. Nice to meet you guys. Like, good luck this season. Like, I would say that, but I wouldn't be like, let's get a picture. Like, we have to.
Well, what I think probably happens is there's somebody that's with them that knows that Josh Harris wants it and says, hey, let's get a picture. Yeah, so Josh Harris doesn't have to say it. I've mentioned this before. Actually, I have two things. I've mentioned this before.
How much does the let's get a picture guy get paid?
$250,000? I don't know. It probably.
That's some good pictures, man.
Yeah.
I don't know what Subers is making, but that's a better job. Easier situation.
It's everyone's favorite award on the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is the By Nature Pet Foods Soft Shit Award that Mike hands out. But don't hand it out now, Mike. We will do it after I talk about By Nature. I know you want to hand it out. Just wait 1 second. The thing about pet food is that it all looks the same. You put it in your dog or your cat's bowl, it's these pellets, right? And you don't think too much about it, but you should. Because even though the pet food looks the same, it's not all the same. And even though your dog or your cat likes whatever you put in the bowl, because they'll eat it, because that's what they are, they're animals, it doesn't mean that it is the best food you could be giving them. By nature, pet food is. Quality proteins, if they're good for, whatever you eat, whether it's fish or chicken or vegetables, if it's good for you, it's good for everybody. That's why, by nature, you don't have to worry about it. It's good for all of them. They use better ingredients, the best ingredients, premium proteins, probiotics, super probiotics, apple cider vinegar, spinach, blueberries, coconut oil, and it's how it's cooked. Reminding you, it looks the same, but it isn't the same. It is slow cooked, so the food stays more nutrient rich, so it is better for your pet. Your pet metabolizes food very quickly because the pet is small compared to you, so the food has to be more nutrient rich so they can be healthier. I'm saying take a little bit of time, take a little bit of care, and get your pet the best food you can get them. And we call it the soft shit award because your pet will no longer have soft shits that you have to pull out of the grass. No, firm, healthy shits from By Nature Pet Foods. 20% off your first order at either Amazon or Chewy. Both places, the promo code is 20RTRS. 20RTRS for By Nature Pet Food. And now, it's what everybody's been waiting for, Mike's Soft Shit Award.
I will have to give this week's Soft Shit Award to the New York Football Giants for...
Oh, wow. That's a good one. Curveball, but a good one.
Well, after week 17 of last year being upset that the Eagles didn't want to help them out so deeply and decided to let Suckfeld all over the field. And then being like, you traded ahead of us to draft Devontae Smith. That sucks. Just there's a softness there of expecting things to be done for them. And so they don't get that. So, soft shit.
If you wanted Devontae Smith, you should have traded up and gotten Devontae Smith.
That's right.
That's how it works.
That's how it works.
Good award. Again, By Nature Pet Foods, promo code 20RTRS at Amazon and Chewy. Get it. I've mentioned this before, but the one time I mentioned Josh Harris, met Josh Harris, it was in Minnesota at a Super Bowl party. It was at Michael Rubin's Super Bowl party, which is very crowded. I don't want to make it sound like it was in a hotel room with 12 people mingling. There were a lot of people there, but he seemed honestly terrified of everyone in person. I can't imagine him asking anyone for a picture. He barely seemed...
the guy.
Yeah, and then... The other thing is, it made me, the asking for a picture thing made me remember also at the Super Bowl when Amos and I were in the tailgate area that we were not supposed to be, basically, for owners, and Embiid and Justin Anderson were there. And of course, we did ask them for a picture. So, talking about how I wouldn't ask for a picture.
No, but that's
exactly
fine. I guess your point about that's why they become owners is the right one. In my mind, it'd be like, well, you're too powerful to want to just get a picture with an Eagles rookie. But you're right that's what they do it for. A regular fan asking Joel for a picture or whatever is yeah, of course, that's what you do. But I don't know. It felt weird. I wanted to know the order of operations. But you're right that there's probably a let's get a picture guy. There's absolutely is.
And what everyone wants to know is now if Josh Harris is out at Apollo, does that create a space for you?
For me,
at Apollo?
Yeah, I think it could. I think I've proved my financial bona fides here, and I think that this has really been an 8-year job interview. This podcast for me to get hired by Sixers ownership to really just what's his name? Who the Clippers hired? Lee. What's his name?
Oh, the writer, the Sports Illustrated, Lee Jenkins.
Lee Jenkins. I'm going to be a Lee Jenkins guy, but for the owners, they're going to hire me to just spruce things up and just be culture and say culture a lot, and that'll be cool for me. Quick thing about the rest of the Hawks game. We didn't even talk about Tobias. I gotta go back. He's just good, man. He's just been so nicely good this season. He had a totally unremarkable 18 points on 13 shots. Just he doesn't shoot as many threes as we want him to, but when he does, he's still relatively effective at them. He's got soft touch on his mid range. He just makes it look easy, and it's just I'm just happy for him, and I hope it continues in the playoffs. It'd be such a bummer if he goes cold.
For his sake.
For his sake, yeah. It would be such a bummer for the season he had if he has like which happens, just a stretch where shots aren't falling or whatever, because he really has improved and been so solid all season long, and I love him for it.
Is that the last?
No, we're not done because we have to talk about. Every podcast is this. I thought the bench just played great. Shake. We talked about Matisse, but like Corkmaz is just so good.
Well, we have a Corkmaz thing coming up in the mailbag. That's why I didn't want to do it here. Okay. Can we just hold it for the mailbag?
We hold it.
Okay. We'll get. It's so close. I just want to make sure we get to it.
Okay. There. Well, then the last thing I want to say is the B-ball Paul. Chase down block and then coast to coast. Euro
step travel dunk. Yeah.
He did absolutely walk. I don't care. You shouldn't be allowed to call walks if it's like a 25-point game with like under a minute left. Like you just shouldn't be allowed to call it. So I'm happy that it went the way it did. But just a delight watching Embiid react to it. And B-ball Paul, like he's not an incredible leaper. He's not like Rashawn. You don't get to see him rise up for it. But he's long and like sneaky long. So I think like he gets the ball over the rim with one hand like impressively, and when you don't expect it, and that I thought he was gonna do a little layup, and for him to finish strong on like a dunk like that was very odd.
You're gonna call me crazy, but that, and you describe the physical attributes and the skill attributes, but that sequence, the block, and then that specific Euro step and dunk, he looked like Giannis. He looked like Giannis. I don't. Cool. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you're right. As far as the dunking part, the dunking off a euro with like the length and stuff, it was.
Yeah.
He's very good. I think he's gonna be a legitimate NBA player. I hope it happens here. I wonder. I'm wondering what happens with. Do they give Dwight another year after this? Do they let Paul Reed have it? Do they try to go get a stretch five? That kind of thing. But Paul Reed, as far as he's just a special defensive player, and he just rolls really hard. And if the jumper can become anything, like B-ball Paul might become meaningful minute Paul, and I believe it.
Would love to see a meaningful minute from B-ball Paul, and we've come a long way. Where Furk was the human victory cigar, and now he's significant rotation guy, and then B-ball Paul slides into victory cigar guy.
Yeah, I think this team has it really just done a decent job of drafting and developing, and it's hard to say that because I remember seeing other teams just in recent years, in the post process pre-Morey era, where it felt like they're not really doing it, but they kind of they drafted Shake, and Shake's been great. They traded up to get Matisse, sure, but even the Shamet was integral to getting a big piece. Now they have Maxey and Isaiah Joe and Paul Reed, and Corkmaz has developed. It's been a weirdly good run of finding talent later in the draft, end of the first round, into the second round, and obviously in the process times undrafted. To these guys are the next up, and it's very exciting that they can do this, and then they have to do this because when you pay Embiid and Simmons and Tobias so much money, you need these guys on rookie contracts to contribute, and they are, and it's very fun. It's always more fun to root for young guys. It really is.
So, big news, Mike. I saw LL Pavorsky yesterday. Now that's not just the big news, even though that is big news. I see him. I had to drop off some T-shirts for his Ricky listeners. He wanted some of the Only Rockets podcast T-shirts, and I saw him. I just drove by. Had a run. He looks fucking incredible.
I hate that.
I was like,
I hate that. I love that for him, and I hate that for me.
I was like, and I don't like saying this to people because it always sounds like you're lying. But I'm like, dude, did you lose like a ton of weight, and he said he's lost 28 pounds.
Wow.
He looks incredible. I was ready to propose to him. I wanted to walk into the store, buy an engagement ring, and ask LL to marry me. That's how good he looked.
That means a lot.
He treats our listeners with the utmost respect and tremendous care, and everyone that goes to LL for an engagement ring, here's the good thing. You get the engagement ring from somebody you trust, who is honestly looking incredible right now. You get the engagement ring from somebody you trust, and you have a jeweler for the rest of your life. You don't have to worry about going anywhere else. You just you want a mechanic, right? You want a plumber, you want a jeweler. LL's your guy. Been there for over 30 years, looking amazing. Never looked better. It was incredible. I was really amazed. 707 Walnut is where he is, but it is by appointment only right now. And he can do it online if you want that too. So 215-627-2252 to make an appointment. Lee at llpavorsky.com, at LL Pavorsky, where his screenshots of Sixers wins from the internet are becoming just it's sort of like the victory cigar is the screenshot.
There it is.
And a supporter of our charities, coded by kids in the Providence Animal Center, LL Pavorsky Jewelers.
Too hot to not be proposed to.
The hard to stomach YouTube comment of the week. Drop us a comment in the box right there. We may read it on the pod. It is brought to you by Kinetic Skateboarding. Mike, the Kinetic Skateboarding / Ricky mesh shorts are coming back for the playoffs. Ben sent me, it was Ben's idea, sent me a color scheme yesterday. And I'm not going to say what it is.
I have the blue ones.
There'll be a different one, not the blue ones.
Those are great shorts.
I did not approve. They are incredible shorts. I did not approve of the color scheme, but everyone else will. So I said, go for it. That's the hint.
Because you only wear black. It's all black.
Black logo, black shorts. It's a good color scheme. So that's coming soon. Go check out what they got. KineticSkateboarding.com. Not just skateboarding, sneakers, gear, all that kind of stuff. Promo code Dave Silver for 9.1% off your first order. 2 YouTube comments. First one comes from Dominic Eastburn. My most controversial, non-political, non-sports opinion, which we gave in the last pod, is that sliced cheese singles go great on apple pie. I've heard of it being popular in the Midwest, but being from the West Coast, people look at me sideways when I share this with them. Also going to tell my girlfriend that size is just a construct. Have you ever tried the cheese on pie thing? I feel like I've only seen it on TV.
No. I like a pie. I mean, in fact, getting a pie today, I'm very excited about it. Whipped cream. Not a cheese. A cheese seems, the texture I think would be upsetting.
A melted cheese on a hot apple pie? I don't know. I've seen it on TV.
But if you're melting cheese, why not just do the whipped cream then?
Whipped cream or ice cream.
Yes.
A scoop of vanilla. Come on. And then Brendan McEwen says it was incredibly brave of Spike to disclose to the entire internet that he wears Secret Women's deodorant. Give me Degree, Cool Rush, or give me death. I don't think it was brave.
Very surprising that it's never come up before, I will say. It's hard at this point in the podcast. It's hard to imagine that there's something I don't know about you.
Right.
Especially something as interesting as I wear women's deodorant because someone told me that that's what they wear in prison and that's good.
Well, okay. I got an email from, if you remember, of course, back to the Tanks Babies discussion. We got an email from an 11-year Army vet named Justin, who, by the way, has had some hard times recently, like with a fire in his home, and is getting back on his feet, and want to send our love out to Justin. But sent me an email after so he had emailed us about the Tanks Babies, basically on the side of Tanks, and sent an email and said, I have been wearing women's deodorant since 2012. Some days when he was deployed, he wouldn't be able to use deodorant for 2 or 3 days, and he insists that the women's deodorant works better. So,
interesting.
So
I've only seen women's deodorant that is the kind of flaky stuff that stops working after like a minute and a half, really.
Well, this might be before your time, and they don't use this marketing slogan, as I don't think it would work anymore. But the original marketing slogan for Secret was strong enough for a man, made for a woman. And I wonder if that has seeped into. I don't. It's entirely possible that this is not true. I have
kind
no
of Don
idea.
Draper shit. You remember marketing slogans for?
Well, it was like all through the 80s and 90s. Like that was Secret's like thing. I saw commercials. I'm not Don Draper. I watched TV, you know? It was
I don't remember. I guess I'm not remembering any Secret deodorant commercials.
But I'm older than you. Like maybe it stopped in the late 80s or something. So I don't know. Anyway, a listener Jigsaw. A listener submitted Jigsaw. I haven't gone to Jigsaw in a while because we're in the season, but this was a good one. It came from a listener. Thank you, Tom. Mike, here are your two choices, both, as always, for the rest of your life. The first choice. Every time you go to a store or any place to purchase something, you are always short a little bit on cash or change and have to ask someone around you for $1 or $2 until you're able to purchase it.
Okay.
Or the second thing. Every time you go to a place to eat, you must complain about the food served to you and ask them to make it again.
Oh, I'm neither of those guys. I never have been. At a store, I'm always the like, if this person's short, I'm gonna
Give
save
him $1.
the day. I'm gonna be the save the day guy. I'm ready to be the save the day guy all the time.
Yep, I want to do that.
But to ask someone is tough. I don't like either of those options at all. I actually, this is upsetting.
It's a horrible Jigsaw.
I would probably be the. I'd rather ask for $1 than have to send food back every time.
Yeah. His caveat to the send food back, I didn't want to include because I think it makes the choice too easy. He says for the food thing, it cannot be done politely. You have to cause a scene.
Even if it was politely.
Yeah.
Even then, I couldn't do it. I hate
every
it.
time.
Every time. That would be brutal. I haven't been going out, but I wouldn't go out. I'd go out even less.
Yeah, I think it has to be the first one. The second one, no one's going to hate you for the first one. The second one.
It'll also be like you're not seeing the same people at a store. Like if I went to I'd have to go to the same restaurant a couple times because there's restaurants that we like. And so I'd have to, every time I go to that restaurant, which is like, let's say like even once a month, sometimes more, I'd be like, I'm going to have to send this back. I'm so sorry. Every time. No, thank you. No.
They see you coming and they're like, just make two of them.
Back. Yeah, just make the shitty one. He's going to send it back anyway. No, I can't do that.
The Lorenzo Brown Mailbag, Rights To Ricky Sanchez at gmail.com. Send us a basketball and a non-basketball question. I won't always ask both. Somebody emailed asking. Sometimes I need balance. So I want you to send both. I'll choose one or the other. This one comes from Tyler. Which moment, and I have a different one than you do, I'm sure of this. What moment from Sixers past do you wish the podcast was around for?
Interesting. I mean, it's easy to say like the 83 team. I think that would be the clear one. The Iverson practice rant you could think about. I mean, Charles Barkley trade would be tough. I would have been pretty upset, I imagine. The Wilt trade, obviously, also would have been upset. I'll go Charles Barkley trade because I would have.
Okay.
I think the podcast is at best when we are indignant about something, and I think that would have been one.
Now, truth be told, I would have had to convince you to do the podcast that night.
That's
I
right.
think. Yeah. Tim Perry and Jeff Hornacek, who smelled his fingers when he shot free throws. Fucking so weird. I actually, and it seems like the podcast was around for this because it didn't happen long before this podcast, and you were obviously writing for Liberty Ballers. I would have loved to podcast. In retrospect, I think our podcast would have been excellent for the Bynum era. Just from the trade all the way down to the maybe he'll play now. And we've done different versions of that.
Sure.
But the Bynum one would have been a great one, I think, for the podcast to exist for.
Yeah, that would have been tough. I definitely did some like Google Hangout publicized, back in because I was writing for Liberty Ballers and that's like the heart of the Liberty Ballers era for me was those Bynum updates and stuff.
The Andres Tostioni era.
The Tostione era for sure. Lucy the Giant Tanking Octopus. The I would also say Doug Collins offering Kwame Brown a 5-year deal. I think would have been an interesting time for there to be a podcast.
How about Doug Collins trashing Andre Iguodala to reporters?
Yeah, any of that. I mean,
me.
the argument against that era, where I was already talking about the Sixers on the internet, is that I just would have been, nothing would have mattered. Like I was just like, I don't care.
Right. Because there was no hope, there was no plan. It was just Doug Collinsing into the ground. This next email comes from Joe. Hey guys, cheers, go North. I don't know what that means, but who would win in a 1-on-1, let's say to 11, Thybulle versus Maxey?
I think it's a good question.
This is easy.
And I think it's an easy answer, and I think it's Maxey.
Yeah.
Matisse just wouldn't be able to score.
You can't dribble. You can't. You take the offensive guy over the defense.
Yeah, there's not enough breaking his man down that would happen. And it's not like he could punish Maxey for his size, aside from just on offensive rebounds and stuff.
I
Maxey,
would actually,
even if Maxey's shot like
sorry.
30% from the field on Matisse, I think he would get enough to win.
Here's my take, is that Maxey would be a more effective defensive player on Thybulle than Thybulle would be on Maxey, honestly. Like, Thybulle is so limited offensively that whatever Maxey did to hassle him, even just normal guard shit, would probably be disastrous for Thybulle.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Non-basketball question, who would read to more sick puppies, parentheses, I'm wishing absolutely zero sickness in dogs, Kyle Korver or Eric Snow?
I couldn't even begin to guess the qualifications that would be required.
Eric Snow has the face, I think, especially fat Eric Snow, like late life Eric Snow.
Well, Snow fell asleep on the broadcast, which is not something we
Yes.
talk about very much. So maybe he would help the puppies fall asleep.
We did. I don't know if you remember. We did ask him about it on the podcast. That is That's a podcast episode, and he denied it, of course. And we waited till the end to ask him about it. But if you go back in history, 7 years, there is a Eric Snow on the Ricky where we ask him about falling asleep. Mm-hmm. From Robert, the Corkmaz question that I promised you. I'm hoping you can help me understand the likelihood that Furkan Corkmaz will resign with the Sixers. On a recent pod, Mike mentioned that he will be with another team next year, and I'm inclined to think that one of the 29 other teams will be willing to outspend the cap-strapped Sixers on a restricted free agent. I think he's unrestricted, whose value is definitely trending up. He's definitely unrestricted. But my assessment is that Furkan could likely project as Bellinelli with maybe slightly less shooting ability than Marco, but ability to create off the dribble and the length not to be a defensive liability. Such a player would be a nice long-term piece to complement Ben and Joel. If the Sixers share my assessment, couldn't they simply decline Danny Green's 2022 option and hand that money to Furk? I love what Danny's done on the defensive end, in the locker room, and in the vibes department. But 1 year of Danny Green's sacrifice for a long-term extension of Corkmaz is the kind of hard choice that winning teams need to make. Would you agree with this choice in a vacuum, and is there any other way to keep Corkmaz?
Danny doesn't have an option for next year.
He is a unrestricted. They're both unrestricted free agents.
And I think already Corkmaz is a better ball handler and better defender than Bellinelli ever was.
Oh. I thought you were going to
Bellinelli
say
better shooter.
Green.
For longer, for sure. But I mean, I just don't think it's possible. I think they don't have money to do it, and if they decided to blow past it, then it's like, okay, you're getting close to when you'd have to pay Shake or Matisse. I just don't think it's possible. I think he's #too good. And I'm glad for him. Like when Dario got paid, it was like we could have paid Dario like 3 years, like $9 million or something. But I'm glad that he got way more, and I think that Corkmaz will get way more. He was great last night. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I'm just treasuring the moments we have with him. He was distributing really nicely. A lob to Dwight. He has like a no-look lob to Dwight, which I loved. He had like a lefty scoop floater. he's just a delightful presence on the court. Him and Matisse are like doing goofy things pregame. It's just really, it's a delight, and especially after Corkmaz, of course, iconically requested a trade. That was, I don't even think remarked upon by anyone. To go from that to hitting the game winner in Portland, telling us a stupefied Josh Richardson that it was the best moment of his life, and now being a really valuable contributor to a first or second seed in the East, and he's going to get playoff minutes, and that's awesome, and I hope he hits some big shots. That'd be really cool. I'm very happy for him, and very likely appreciating his last year with the team, because I do think he's going to get paid a lot of money, and he deserves it.
Let me say, if he does stay, he has moved himself into sort of the echelon of player that a crowd of people at a live Ricky would go apeshit for,
sure.
And he would give funny answers.
That's right.
That's right. He has put himself in that position, I think. Last one. This comes from Vincent. I've been listening to old pods, specifically some of my favorites from the end of the Hinkie era. I have always enjoyed the theoretical juxtaposition of process Sixers versus current Sixers and such. Here's my basketball question. On page 5 of Sam Hinkie's resignation letter, Sam states in the section titled A Contrarian Mindset that to develop contrarian views, one must require the never-ending thirst for better, more diverse inputs. As such, he poses the challenge, what basketball axiom is most likely to be untrue? Take it on and do the opposite. I believe Sam Hinkie valiantly took on and proved wrong the axiom that by losing, a team develops a, quote, losing culture that precludes future winning. Contrary to the inane ramblings of Brian Colangelo stumping that he would bring a winning culture, I believe the winning, led eventually by Joel Embiid, germinated from the belief Sam Hinkie had in his efforts to prove wrong the, quote, losing culture fallacy. So here's the question, framed in a classic process Sixers versus current Sixers manner. Which basketball axiom is the most untrue, and which have the Sixers, led by Sam Hinkie's enduring longest view and Joel Embiid's natural ability, done the most to prove misguided? The first, if you lose, you will build a losing culture at the expense of future wins, or the best ability is availability. Which is more untrue?
Yeah. I think the answer is still the best ability is availability, because it's just simply untrue. Like, when you're going through, you're preparing for the NFL draft, Spike. You're like, okay, yep. I want to find out the guys who's good. First things first, how many games did they play? Let's go to that. It is first, gotta look first. If they played any less than all of them, then I gotta dock their pay. It's just never made any sense, and it just happens because it rhymes. I do think there is some validity, to the idea that if a rookie that plays on a good team that learns how from good veterans how to take care of their bodies, win at the NBA level, make in-game adjustments, get ready for each game, prep, all that stuff. I think it's important. I just don't think it is as important as making sure you get really good players. Because winning doesn't come when you tell your guys who are all like C+, hey, go win. Go get it. You got Evan Turner and Thad Young and Spencer Hawes. Like, win some games, fuckers. That's not how winning happens. It happens when you get to draft Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons and then make reasonable free agent acquisitions and good draft picks later in the draft and build a culture of winning through your best players. Not just saying we're going to build a culture of winning. So those years where it was like, hey, Michael Carter-Williams and Isaiah Cannon and KJ McDaniels are not learning how to win. The answer was always, who gives a shit? Very few of these guys are going to be there when it matters. And even still, as we now know, a lot of the guys that were taught to lose in those eras are still playing around the league and succeeding. TJ, Jakar, Jeremy, Christian Wood, Rob Covington. Like, there's a lot of guys, Rashawn, like, there's a lot of guys that were process era guys who are succeeding despite never learning how to win or whatever the fuck people were saying. And it's just it was always dumb. No one thinks that, like, you should always lose. It was always just straw man after straw man. And now we are, and we're going to talk about this in a couple weeks when we have Jake Fisher on to talk to look back. But the Sixers are now in their 4th straight playoffs. They have made the playoffs handily in all of those years. It was never close that they didn't make the playoffs. And so, despite the fact that the process took 3 years, like, those 3 years are nothing. It was never anything. There was 3 years of process, 1 year of bad Colangelo, and then fully healthy Embiid and Simmons, and they've made the playoffs all 4 seasons since. And they haven't succeeded in the playoffs as much as we want, but sustained high-level success was the point. No one's worried that, like, fucking, sorry to do this, Henry Sims didn't learn winning habits. Like, it doesn't fucking matter. We're here now, and they were always down.
I knew that was going to happen. I knew that question was going to do that. Good, great job.
Come on.
You.
How could it
and
not?
then I'm saying that positively. And his non-basketball question, which apex predator would win in a death match, a saltwater crocodile or a great white shark? At first, one would think that a great white shark's size advantage and maneuverability would give it a significant leg up, though I would rebut that the saltwater crocodile possesses an incredibly thick skin compared to the shark's tender exoskeleton. Additionally, a crocodile's teeth and bite are made to clamp down on its prey with no intention of release, whereas a great white shark often thrashes at its prey in an effort to snap its neck by force, not to mention its teeth, which are designed to tear away when faced with resistance.
Seems like this guy's answering his own question. Who do you think then, guy?
After a long period of reflection, I've decided to back the saltwater crocodile in this battle. What say you? I have done the shark versus bear in a neutral setting fight before. Space is what we usually say. I always come down to shark because I do believe that one hit or bite from the shark ends the fight. And I don't believe, I just think there's a better chance that the, sort of like the knockout puncher versus the technical defensive boxer. I'm just going with the knockout guy. You?
Well, I think this guy's saying because the shark has to bite and clamp and thrash and do a bunch of bites to get him there. The knockout punch in this would be the crocodile because if he lands anything, then it's not letting go. But I think they seem slow. They seem very slow, especially compared to a shark. But I'm not a fish guy, so I don't know. But I'll go shark because why not?
Mike, quote, not a fish guy.
Not a fish guy. Never have been.
Well, as we leave, the 3 things, the Sixers are in first place, tied by record.
They're not. They're half game back.
Yes, they are.
Half game back.
What's that?
Half game back. They're tied in the loss column.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've been wrong this whole time. Okay. Well, then I would lie.
But if they tie because they have the tiebreaker, they would. They would win. Thanks to a nice game from our Portland Trailblazers and forever Sixer Rob Covington.
And then finally, congratulations to you on 2 fronts. 1, on Young Rock being renewed for a 2nd season, and 2, on a good-looking haircut. I think you can roll with this style for a while.
Thank you on both ends. We're getting used to the haircut. And, watch Young Rock. The finale, season 1 finale, is on Tuesday. All episodes are on Hulu. It's a fun show. It's a cool show. Now there's going to be a season 2, so that's dope. So watch them. Watch them all.
All right. That's all we got. We will talk to you soon. Are you down with TTP?
Yeah. You know lick face.
If you don't fuck with me, then I won't fuck with you.
If you don't fuck with me,
then I won't fuck with you.
But if you fuck with me,
I'm gonna fucking kill you!
Time for Plan B.